Diller, it's Miss Morris here, and I'm here to share a spooky season. We're now in our fall season, so I had to make sure I put my witch hat on. But before I share our story, I just wanted to say how much I miss all of you and hope that you're having a great school year and staying safe and healthy. We just want you to know that the Diller family misses you all so much and loves you all. The story we're going to be reading tonight is End of Straight Neighbor. Let's begin. It was a regular school day for both Yaritza and Sally. When the school day came to an end, they both took the bus to go back to their home. When they arrived to their house, something caught Yaritza's attention. The end of the street's empty house. It was like a haunted house for Yaritza and Sally, and still is. How can an empty house be that scary? The house was so old. The painting is no longer bright. The house was now colored in very pale colors due to time. No one is taking care of the house. The trees surrounding the house like ghosts who want to haunt you the moment you are there. The windows of the house are broken. You can see the inside of the house from such broken windows. The rooms inside the house were empty. You can only find some broken furniture left behind from last families who tried to live in the house, but none actually stayed longer to give an extra hand to the house painting and making it an actual place to live in. The families who left, who were actually nice people, never gave a good reason when leaving. Actually, some of them never gave a good reason. Actually, some of them left suddenly, without a good excuse. God only knows why those families left that quickly. The stories that were left behind with the house were actually a lot. All kids in the neighborhood invented all kinds of stories about it because of how it looks and how weird families leaving the house without a good reason was. One of the stories was an old baron from the old ages was killed, and since that time his soul kept wandering around in the house and never left till now. Another one was that Count Dracula lived in the house in the old ages and still lives there till present time. Other stories say that a whole family was killed by a serial killer, and they haunted the house from that time. Actually, more stories have been told because of how the house is really a good subject for many stories. Yaritza kept thinking of those stories till the extent that she didn't hear her mother calling her name. Her mother kept calling her till she came to actually shake her to listen to her. She told her that she called her a lot and that she didn't hear her because she was busy daydreaming. She apologized to her mother, and all went on. Yaritza addressed her mother, saying, "Mommy, I have a question. Why is the house at the end of the street that scary?" Her mother looked at her in a look known to Yaritza very well, saying, "Look, Yaritza, it's an old house. I guess some families didn't actually like the house. That's why they leave a lot. The reason also might be that they don't have enough money to actually spend on the house in order to give it a good makeover. That's why they quickly sell it." Her mother added, "Don't ever go in there, please. It's not safe that you go there. It might be also dangerous since it's not well equipped or set up properly for people to live in." Yaritza said, "All right, Mom." Yaritza quickly changed the subject. But an idea was revolving in her head. A very bad idea, in fact. She wanted to go to the house herself to see how does the house look from the inside and try to discover the secret behind the stories that have been said about the house. Bad idea, Yaritza. Who knows what's there in an empty house? Besides, Mom said don't go there alone because it's not safe. But she wasn't going to let the idea go from her head. She already made the decision. When it was evening time, both Yaritza and Sally went up to bed. The moment Sally slept, Yaritza put some pillows on the bed and covered them up to make them look like she was still in the bed. She put on her clothes and wore her shoes and left. Oh no, Yaritza, don't go there. Don't go to the empty house alone. She sneaked out of the house. On her way to the empty house, she thought that it's better to go back, but she was so curious seeing the house from the inside. It was so dark and the street was so quiet except from the cats and dogs. It was windy and the sky wasn't clear at all. With such signs of weather, it could actually rain or even worse. She was so scared because she was alone, but didn't want to go back. It was the first time she left without her parents, but that didn't stop her. The weather was getting worse, that it started to rain. She finally reached the house, all wet and scared. It was too dark to see properly. Trees covering all the insides from the house. She can only hear silence and creepiness coming out of the house. When she got closer, she found 2 statues of dragons at the doorway. They looked so scary. Yaritza suddenly heard a very loud voice of dogs getting closer to her. Ruff, ruff, ruff. She freaked out and instead of getting away and going back to her house, she ran towards the house. Towards the freaky house. She ran so quickly without looking back till suddenly she fell and slipped towards the door. And in a second, she was in the house. The door of the house was been shut suddenly because of the wind. While she was in the house, alone, she totally freaked out and kept banging on the door so someone could hear her, but nothing. She can only hear her heartbeats. Bum bum, bum bum, bum bum, and nothing else. What have I done to myself? She talked to herself. When suddenly she heard a very loud sound. A very loud sound coming out of the window. Shut. She startled. She tried to comfort herself, but she couldn't do that easily. She was more afraid when the window too was shut. She tried to catch her breath and take a look at the house. She took some slow steps in to check the house. She found very old pictures hanging on the walls. The painting from the inside of the house was cracked. The walls, the floors, the windows, the smell of the house. Everything there was so creepy. She found many rooms at the first floor. All were empty rooms. She found stairs leading to the second floor. She decided to go up and take a look. When she went up, she found 3 more rooms with a bathroom and kitchen. The rooms were empty except from some broken furniture. The furniture she saw from outside the house. The walls of the room were full of stains, but one room was covered with a different kind of stain. But what kind of stains were they? The stains were dotted dark brown stains, similar to that if found if someone was been killed in the room. Was there someone actually murdered in that room? She found the single photo frame on the wall. She got closer to the photo hanging, and suddenly felt something crawling on her shoulder. Lots and lots of spiders were falling from the wall, and pictures on her hair. All her shoulders and on her shoulders and clothes and all over her, in fact. She jumped and jumped of fear and kept screaming and screaming so loud that she wanted her family beside her now. She wanted her mother and father with her now to help her out. She kept shouting and shouting till nothing came out of her house. She ran down the stairs, and on her way down she slipped and fell on the stairs. It was quite a bad fall. She couldn't move. She hurt her leg and head. She barely could even point with her fingers. She was so scared. She wanted someone to help her out, but no one was around. Her legs hurt so much, and her arms too. How can she do that to herself? How come she leaves the house without her parents' permission? Then she slept on the floor because she couldn't move from her place. She was in pain and scared as well. She slept without noticing the time. More hours passed. Yaritza fell asleep deeply. Outside the house, in Yaritza's house, her mother woke up suddenly because of the noise of the wind and rain. She wanted to check on her kids. She went to their room to cover them properly since she was cold. She went to and found Celia sleeping. She kissed her and covered her properly. But when she moved to Yaritza's bed, she screamed loudly because when she wanted to kiss Yaritza too, all that she found were pillows. Celia and her father woke up because of the mother's screams. Their father came running towards the kids' room and asked the mother what happened. She told him that she couldn't find Yaritza. The family called the police. When the police officers came, they kept asking them questions in order to help them find their little girl. The mother suddenly remembered their talk in the morning. When she asked about the empty house, she told the police officers about the talk, and all the family left with them to the empty house. Police cars reached the empty house where Yaritza went to. Police officers went inside the house and found Yaritza on the floor. Her arms, legs, and head were hurt. They ran toward her to make sure that she was okay. Her parents were so terrified that something bad had happened to her when she was in the house. They kept calling her name. Yaritza, Yaritza! She wasn't responding at the beginning, but finally she opened her eyes. When she saw her parents, she started crying and apologizing for what she did and told them what happened. She told them that she was so scared without them and promised not to leave them again. Her father carried her and all went with her to the hospital, where they took care of her wounds. And then all left to their house, accompanied by police officers. The police officers made sure that they were all fine and asked Yaritza to never leave her parents like that again. She promised them not to do that again. When the police officers left the house, Yaritza's parents rebuked her and asked her not to do that again. Sorry, I messed up a little bit. The police officers left the house. Yaritza's parents rebuked her and asked her not to do that again to her because they love her and were so afraid when they didn't find her in her bed. She hugged both of them and promised to behave. Her parents made sure of that. Both of their kids were in bed after that rough night, and they both left to sleep. The end. Scary stories for kids are not always bad. Sometimes stories do teach children something, sometimes how they should act after seeing some bad action consequences done by the heroes in the story. Don't we all have something to learn all the time? Well, I hope you guys liked the story, The Empty House in the Neighborhood. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your year and hope to see you soon.